Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagano, and John and I are back here in Studio 130 today for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of Iowa's favorite conservative podcast. John, it's just you and I. Can we do it?
We can, yeah.
Okay, good. All right. I let the intro music run way too long there. Hopefully we can fade that out. We got a lot to go over today.
Yes.
And so John has got some new vigor because it's actually starting to get cold.
Yes, it's nice.
It is. It's almost normal weather now. So the heck with this 70s business. Yeah. We need some 40s to get
nice this morning
to get us going. All right. I'm going to start with one that I told you that I didn't tell you about that I want to go over today. So we have the Iowa Caucuses, and we've talked about a lot of different things. But now we have once again for the second time, or another, so we had 4 years ago, but car crash, automotive misadventures in, and I'm going to tell a story in a minute, but I had a little bit of a minor fender bender in Grinnell. So Powesheik County with Vivek Ramaswamy. So did you see this on KCCI last night?
Yes, it was on Channel 8 last night.
All right. Well, what's your takeaway on this?
Well, it was interesting because there was discussion of whether it was on purpose or deliberate or not, because I can't remember if this was in the Channel 8 story or if I read it somewhere else, but supposedly they had flipped Vivek's, was it a bus he was in?
I think it was a black SUV of some kind, but functionally, yes, a bus.
Yeah.
Well, okay, and who knows whether it was deliberate or not, but it seems to me that if you're kind of harassing a presidential candidate, flipping them off, being all inappropriate, and then you end up hitting them, those things are probably connected.
Yes, yeah.
I think the burden's at least on the person that hit him to have a good explanation. And I suppose at the end of the day, it's not really a big deal. Other than, hey, free news for Vivek.
Yeah.
You know, what we did talk about though is, well, I'm going to come back around to that. So 4 years ago, and I told you guys this story this morning, and I don't know if you'd ever heard it, John, Powesheik County, was the Andrew Yang gang. And this didn't get a lot. This wasn't on KCCI, but right before the caucus, I heard my father-in-law telling me this story. He was a farmer in Powesheik County at the time. He's passed away since then, but that he had pulled this rented Chrysler PT Cruiser out of the mud in January down one of these level B roads. And it turns out it was a Yang gang. And he was just laughing, because he is a good trumper. Yeah. And about how he'd pulled these guys out of the mud. And so I told the story. I went on and looked on social media. I actually did find this. And so there's a video of my father-in-law and his beat up white farm truck pulling these guys out of the mud. And so I had retweeted that, and I became sort of an honorary Yang gang guy for at least about 24 hours. But so it just reminded me of that story, and I wanted to come around and
that's a
share.
Great story.
It really is. He was just laughing. I thought it was great. And they tried to convert him, but he said, you guys probably ought to move along this Trump country down here. But it's how you got that little car stuck in the mud down a dirt road in Iowa. But it was good. It's the Iowa Caucuses. There's always good stories like that floating around. Yeah. And despite what the national media might have you think that a diehard Trumper from rural Iowa is still there to lend a helping hand to these guys from New York City that are here to work on that side. I thought it was great.
Really not that bad people.
No, we're not. No. Well, some of us are, but that's fine. I made this point this morning before we move off of Vivek. Did you see this clip of him leading up to this? He was, I'm assuming, was walking away from his event to his car. And there was presumably a college student, because he's wearing a Grinnell College sweatshirt, who was talking to him about climate change. Did you see this?
I did not, no.
Well, I really thought it was remarkable. And I've seen Vivek do this a couple other times. He spent the whole walk just talking to him about his issue. And clearly it was a left-wing activist, very motivated on climate change. And so the guy was walking along with him, and he was very informed and knew all the liberal talking points on climate change, and probably right on some data. Who knows? I'm not getting into the actual merits of the conversation. But Vivek, in a very disarming way, talked it through with him. Said, okay, here's where I agree with you. Here's where I think you might be wrong. Here's my position. And I think it actually took this guy back that this presidential candidate, this dastardly Republican, was actually interacting with him.
Yeah.
And I think that is great.
Yeah.
You can't do it with everyone. Obviously, he's running for president of the United States, but he had done it with I think it was an abortion activist a couple of months ago, and the same thing, and left. And you could almost see, the other time I was watching that just some of the anger or the frustration almost drain out of that person that they actually got listened to. And
that might have been the one at the state fair.
Maybe it was. Yeah, I think that's right. And I guess maybe it's a little bit of my own experience. A lot of times people just want to be heard.
Yes. Yeah.
And so and kudos to Vivek for this is what he's really good at.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's really good at talking these things through, and he understands the messaging and everything behind the issue. So I've been really impressed with that part of him and his campaign.
Well, I was sharing with you this morning that Chris and I were invited to a small group meeting, and Vivek was there, and he was very personable and was very interested in what everyone there had to say and very engaging in the conversation. And so it's kind of refreshing to see that.
Yeah. No,
I think it does, like you said, disarm some of these liberals because they probably aren't expecting a conversation like that.
No, I think a lot of them have built up in their mind that everyone is going to give a Donald Trump styled answer, which is to push back immediately. And hey, sometimes that's absolutely appropriate and we like it. Yeah. But no, there is absolutely room in our current political debate to be conservative, to be aggressive in what you believe, and still be willing to have. And you know what? One more thing. Kudos to those activists on the other side that also wanted to have that conversation.
Yes.
That it's not just you are evil, you're bad.
Yeah.
Because they wanted someone to hear them and they wanted to exchange ideas.
Yeah.
And I think for both the Grinnell College student and the abortion activist at the state fair, I appreciate them for wanting to have a civil debate about this thing. So
it reminds me of the old firing line episodes with William F. Buckley.
Of course it does, John.
And Buckley would debate a lot of leftists.
Yeah.
And but it was a civil discussion. And
you should be able to interact with the arguments of your political opponents, of those that do not agree with you philosophically, if for no other reason that it makes you better at making your own.
Yes. Yeah.
So absolutely. So I'm going to pivot from that when we're talking about civil debate. So here we've got, you sent this to me earlier, John. I'm going to read the Fox News headline. Okay. Hillary Clinton floats, quote, formal deprogramming, those are her actual words, of Trump supporters, suggests that the GOP base is made of bigots. You sent it to me, John. Come on, because I got thoughts of it. Here you.
This is, and I just said this is scary, which it is, and I think it's very troubling, and it's no surprise because she was the one that called Trump and his supporters the basket of deplorables, and they're not redeemable, and so we've seen this kind of rhetoric before from not only from Hillary Clinton but from also Barack Obama and even Joe Biden.
Right.
And we're seeing now where Joe Biden is switching gears, and instead of Bidenomics, he's bringing up the old democracy card again and trying to scare people that, Trump and all the MAGA people are dangerous and a threat to democracy, which is terrible. It's just a lie. But this is scary. I think this rhetoric is scary.
I think there's several things going on here, John. On the messaging switch from Bidenomics, I think that is absolutely data-driven from public opinion polls.
Oh, you're right.
Because first of all, they are getting clobbered in public opinion on their handling of the economy.
Yes.
So every time they're out talking about Bidenomics, they are reinforcing the public's growing opinion that this administration and Democrats in Washington, D.C. have completely broken our economy, which they have.
Absolutely
and they're losing on it. And they also have polling that shows that it's as frustrating as it is, this whole saving democracy or protecting democracy actually does pull a little bit better. It at least registers.
Yeah.
Now, I think the American people will see through it, but you know what helps them see through it is this kind of garbage.
Yes.
Because if we're going to protect democracy, let's not talk about deprogramming our fellow Americans.
Yeah.
So earlier in this conversation, she tries to draw a line between the Republicans that wanted to oust Kevin McCarthy and the rest of them. But I think that's a real gray area in Hillary Clinton's mind. I think she's saying the quiet part out loud here is that's what anybody that disagrees with modern progressive mainstream thought needs to be deprogrammed. But come on. This is the exact quote, because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members because something needs to happen. So I have two questions off that, John. What does a formal deprogramming look like? I mean, are we going to send people to the gulag?
Yeah, that's...
Or, what is that?
Yeah.
And secondly, where are you drawing the line of who needs the reprogramming and who doesn't?
Yeah.
Is it just Matt Gaetz? Or is that us?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah. And that's what's scary, because that's what, the communists did. They sent people to re-education camps, and then...
They were called re-education camps.
Yeah. And the other thing we're seeing, too, is that the left sending people to be re-educated, if you use the wrong pronouns or something like that, if, HR departments sending people to supposedly be re-educated and with all this diversity stuff, and this is their agenda, which is very, very troubling, very, very concerning. And you brought up was it a few podcasts ago about the Axios article about, remember, the Trump flag and having a meltdown over that.
Yeah.
And it just seems like for the left, democracy is only for what they believe in. And if freedom of speech for them, but if you don't agree with them, there's no freedom of speech, there's no religious liberty, there's, you need to be deprogrammed and re-educated. That's sort of their definition of democracy.
Yeah. Hillary Clinton, it devolves into that in this, even in her quote in this article. She talks about the merchandise.
Yeah.
Of the list of grievances is that people are wearing Trump stuff.
Yeah.
Her quote is the base of the Republican Party. Well, now we're not talking about Matt Gaetz anymore. We're talking to the base of the Republican Party. For whatever reason, combination of reasons, sees so on and so forth. Sees him as someone who speaks for them. Well, that's horrible.
Yeah.
People feel like they have an advocate. That's awful. They are determined and they will continue to vote for him, attend his rallies, wear his merchandise, because for whatever reason, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So she's really just upset that people feel like they have an advocate and somebody that's on their side.
Yeah.
And so they want to wear his hat.
Yeah.
I mean, good grief.
Yeah.
And so my question, I think I've answered it already, of where are you going to draw the line? If you've ever owned a Trump hat, a MAGA hat, or put his yard sign in your yard, or put a statue of him on your desk, or whatever it might be, you now need deprogramming.
I'm in trouble.
Yes. Now, here's one other thing, John. If we want to talk about the need for deprogramming and re-education, I think there's a whole lot of nonsense going on in our current educational system that we might want to back up from.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's another conversation for another day.
And that's talk about re-education. Look at some of these universities.
Yeah. That's my point. Teaching. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, back to fiscal matters. Wall Street Journal. Well, you want to? Okay.
Well, I
if you got more to say, let's go.
I should have brought my little Trump statue in.
You should have. Yeah. That's another one for another day.
Yeah.
A piece from the Wall Street Journal editorial board. I think this was 2 days ago?
Yes. Yeah.
Iowa's tax cut triumph, where they finally take a break from telling us how wonderful things are in Florida to actually remind us that Iowa's doing it even better.
Yes.
As we've said.
Yeah.
It's not that Iowa's the Florida of the North, it's Florida's the Iowa of the South.
Yes.
So this is good stuff. I'm going to read this from their their article because there's in one paragraph we hit the two things that I want your take on, John. And we've talked about a lot of these issues in the past of just how great things are going. So Iowa is already charging ahead of most Midwestern peers, particularly Minnesota, which resembles the progressive states on the coasts with a 9.85 top income tax rate. Okay. As for, and so we know that the blue states are way out of line and we're beating them.
Yeah.
But so the mantra that we always hear is how risky this all is. So they address this. As for the fiscal risk to Iowans, the state is sitting on a $2.74 billion taxpayer relief fund that will grow again in January.
Yes.
Okay. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And this is Minnesota had a, I think, somewhere $17 billion surplus, and they blew that. Governor Walz did. And
spend it.
And he's done a lot of other radical things, and look at their tax rates. They're following the playbook of tax and spend. And in Iowa, we've had some of the highest tax rates. Now we're going to be one of the lower tax states once everything is phased in, and our fiscal foundation is solid. It's strong, as we know, and as the Wall Street Journal article pointed out. And it's not just Minnesota. Look at Illinois or California, New York, any of these blue states, and it's the same thing. Their budgets are in a mess. They've got high taxes, and they keep running that old playbook of they think they can solve everything by high tax rates, and it's just not working. And and I was really excited to see this because you and I've talked a lot, but I think one of the hardest things for a governor or a legislature or Congress president to do is to hold the line on spending and to say no. And that's what Governor Reynolds has done, and she's done a tremendous job of managing the finances of the state, and this is the reason why we've been able to make these pro-growth tax cuts. And we were at an event yesterday in Cedar Rapids, and I think it was Senator Don Driscoll who talked about she knows people who are coming to Iowa for this very purpose because of our low taxes, and people coming here from other states, and states are getting more competitive, and with the rise of remote work, having a very competitive low tax environment is going to be very good for Iowa, for our economy, and for the taxpayers here. And we heard from Representative Golding talk about the importance of small businesses and having a low income taxes for that, because again, when businesses keep more of their money, they can hire more people, they can reinvest in those businesses.
Yeah. It was a good event yesterday, and they all did a good job of articulating why these things matter and sharing some stories of the real world impact of them. So, I think it's good to bring that back around, because ultimately we're not advocating for any of these things so that we can get the accolades from the Wall Street Journal editorial board.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or anybody else, really. The accolades don't matter. What matters is this having an actual impact on Iowans, on family budgets, on Iowa businesses, of growing and making the state a stronger place and a better place to be.
That's right.
And it absolutely is. And the proof of that is when you actually get down and talk to Iowans about that. So very good. Okay. Because I told you I would touch on it, and I don't want to spend a lot of time because we got a lot to cover still. We're not even there yet, John. Again, in the Wall Street Journal, we read that, at least we were talking about the article off the Wall Street Journal today, but the question I have for you, is President Biden doing a 180 on securing our southern border and building a wall, or is this just posturing, or what's going on here that suddenly the Biden administration is interested in doing something to secure the southern border?
Yeah, I don't believe he's doing a 180. I think this is pure politics. The reason for this is that, well, first of all, he's resuming building the wall. The money that Congress had already appropriated, and one of his first acts when he was sworn in was to stop building the wall. I think the one reason he's doing this is because this past week and the last few days have seen the governor of Illinois and the mayor of New York City and other blue states and liberal mayors and governors basically starting to say something has to be done with the southern border and the flood of illegal immigrants coming across. So I think, and in our poll too, immigration is a top concern for a lot of people, and I think this is a political ploy where the Biden is going to try to use this by saying, well, we're doing something for border security, but there was one day where we had in a 24-hour period where we had 11,000 people come across. And just let me quick, this is from the Center for Immigration Studies, but illegal immigration population has grown 12.6 million by May of this year. I mean, it's just incredible.
Wait, say that again. 12.6 million people this year?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. The illegal immigrant population grew to 12.6 million by May of this year, up 2.4 million since January 2021.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I mean,
clearly the Biden administration doesn't have any interest in securing the southern border any further past what they have been legally required to do. This is another issue where they're losing with the American people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't know if it is that they don't care. I think that's part of it. Or their base is just on the opposite side of the issue and there's nothing they can do about it. Or they're playing a long game with trying to, anybody that comes across and becomes eligible to vote, they're going to be, lifelong Democrat voters. I don't know if I buy as much of that as some base Republicans may say, but for whatever reason, they are out of touch with the American people. You're looking at a likely, at least at this point, looks like a Trump versus Biden matchup. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump was elected in 2016, if nothing else, on a promise to secure our southern border.
Yes.
Build the wall. If there was one thing that his messaging centered around in that campaign was build the wall. Yeah. So if you're looking at trying to compete against that, you're playing right into his hand.
Yeah.
Now, let's not to mention, as we alluded to earlier, just their numbers on their handling of the economy are just abysmal.
Yeah.
And things aren't going to get dramatically better in the next 12 months.
No.
Our economy is in bad shape right now.
It is. Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to use that because I'm going to pivot now to the ITR Foundation poll and some of the results here. Okay, let's go into this. Because the reason I want to choose that spot to pivot, John, is because of the right track, wrong track numbers. So one of the questions. Okay, first of all, let me set the stage. I'm way too eager to have a smooth segue. The ITR Foundation poll. So we do this. We don't do it as frequently in a non-election year as we do it in election years because for obvious reasons. But ITR Foundation puts a poll in the field, and we use Signal, a very highly rated national pollster, to give us some horse race things, some trends, and some issues that are going on in Iowa politics. And we put it all, you can find it all at itrfoundation.org, on all of our social media and whatever. But I thought, because I know people love it when we just drone on about facts and figures and numbers, but I think there's some of these highlights that we need to go over. So one of the questions that we ask right out of the chute is a right track, wrong track. And the question is, do you believe that things in the country, would you say things in the United States are headed in the right direction or off on the wrong track? So the answer to that, 74% of Iowans think that things in this country are heading off on the wrong track. But compare that to the number on Iowa. It's about a 50-50, about 46-46. So, and I think some of that is the extent that, you know what, the economy kind of stinks everywhere. And even though it doesn't stink quite as bad in Iowa, it still is hard.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's fair. What's interesting about this number, so I'm going to go back to the direction of the country number. So if you look at Republicans, 97% of Republicans think that things in this country are off on the wrong track. Doesn't surprise me at all that number is and we're talking about Iowa Republicans. Iowa independent voters, 77-16 think things are off on the wrong track. So they pretty much seeing things the same way Republicans are. Democrats, 47% off on the wrong track. 38% of Democrats in Iowa think that things in this country are going great.
Yeah.
There's a real divide there, but it shows that Democrats are the ones that aren't really paying attention to what's going on around them.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. And so again, all of these kind of crosstabs are available at ITR Foundation. What are your thoughts on that right track, wrong track?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And one of the issues of top concern that we polled was inflation.
Right.
I think that was the top, and so I'm not surprised where, people see the economy. They're still paying more at the gas pump. They're still paying more at the grocery store. Inflation is reducing their income, and so that's not surprising. And even, seeing independents and even Democrats, inflation impacts everybody. And so I'm not, it should be a top concern for Democrats because this does not look good for them in the election.
Well, we asked that question.
Yeah.
So here's the question. From the following list, which issue is personally most important to you that would decide your vote for Congress? And that vote for Congress uses sort of the generic Republican versus Democrat vote. But overall, 24% of Iowans say that inflation in the economy is top issue. Number 2 on that list, illegal immigration at the border. 14% of Iowans say that's their top issue. Top issue. Despite the fact that our economy is circling the drain, they're still concerned about inflation or illegal immigration at the border. Heading on down the list. Third on the list, though, is threats to democracy, which goes into that whole kind of Hillary Clinton deplorables and reprogramming, which I guess is where we're going if these 12% of Iowans have their way. But let's look at how that breaks down, though. Inflation in the economy, 28% of Republicans have that as their number one issue. 27% of independents have that number one in their issues. Only 17% of Democrats. It's that threats to democracy that really resonates with Democrats. That's their top issue. It's threats to democracy. So anyway, I think it clearly shows though what's on the minds of Iowans as they're thinking about this. Yeah. So I want to kind of come back and click through some of these other top line numbers. One of the things that I think is the most instructive, especially when you're this far out from an election, because really we're talking about an election that will take place 13 months from now.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Is the generic congressional ballot. If the election was held today and you had to make a choice, would you vote for the Republican or Democrat candidate for the U.S. Congress? That number is 50% would vote for the Republican candidate, 36 for the Democrat candidate, plus 14.
Yeah.
That's a big gap. And that is actually bigger than it has been, than it was in our previous poll. Go ahead.
Well, it shows that people are wanting a change. I mean, they're tired of what's going on.
Now, right now, there's more Republicans than Democrats in Iowa too. So that's some of that. Independent voters, 47 to 25, plus 22 are voting for the Republican candidate. Yeah. So that's
big.
It's big.
Yeah.
So I think we certainly have an environment where Iowa voters, at least, are ready to vote Republican. So there's just we do some image tests, and I think the one that just jumps off the page at me is President Biden's approval rating.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, he was at, let's see, I don't have it on that page like that, but 67% unfavorable to 40% or more or less favorable, 30%. So a minus 37.5. So let's call that 67 to 30.
Yeah.
The only people that still have a favorable view of President Biden are base Democrats. That's it. Everybody else is done.
Yeah.
The president or Donald Trump has a far better approval rating in Iowa.
Yep.
You know, he's at only a minus 15 at 56 unfave to, 41 fave. So the obvious question then from those favorable ratings, Iowans really don't like Joe Biden, is what does that do? We've got some hypothetical presidential matchups. Yeah, so we'll kind of land the airplane there, John. But so the question, Trump versus Biden, hypothetical, November 20. We've asked this before, but we checked in on it again. The Trump versus Biden, if the election were held today, who would you vote for? 47% Donald Trump, 38% Joe Biden. So 9-point difference. We asked also President Biden versus a Republican other than Donald Trump. That number grows to over 15 points. Yeah. You have almost 49% for another Republican, and only 33% of Iowans are ready to vote for Joe Biden. But I mean, it is clear that a different nominee does better in Iowa at this point. Yeah. We've got data right here that shows it. So we added a new question. And John, you and I kind of went back and forth about this one. So I want to get your take on this one. What if the hypothetical matchup were Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Gavin Newsom? What's it? And that number, plus 13, Donald Trump, 48, 35.
Yep.
Gavin Newsom does worse than Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we're gonna kick Joe Biden to the curb because he's he's struggling with. Yeah. And we're going to bring in Gavin Newsom,
who's polling worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's right now. That's pretty much all they have right now is Newsom or Tim Walz.
Yeah, exactly. Independent voters, because that's where you got to go look, right? Independent voters, plus 11 for Donald Trump over Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
So they just generically let's do Trump. So there's a lot of other stuff in here. We ask some local government questions in here.
Those were fascinating too.
I thought so. Interestingly, we asked who do they think is primarily responsible for their property tax bill. 25% of Iowans think that it's the state government.
Yeah.
So we need to keep yelling about this, John.
That's right.
We have some re-education and deprogramming that needs to take place because it's your local government. It's local government spending.
Yeah.
Interestingly, that breaks down on party lines. Democrats are much more likely to blame state government for property taxes, whereas Republicans and independents see it very similarly. Okay. Is that it's more local, or it's more city and county. So
that is interesting.
You wouldn't think a question like that would break across party lines. Over 70% of Iowans have not contacted, reached out, or attended a city council meeting or county board of supervisors meeting last year. I actually thought that might even be higher. Yeah. But it just shows that Iowans just are not engaged with local government at all. And we need to work on that as well.
That's right. Yeah.
We need to we need to program them. We need to educate them, not the re or D. Yeah. We need to educate them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to be involved in those local government budget decisions.
Lot of good stuff in the poll. I would really encourage anyone who takes an interest in this. This really is, it's a large sample size, statistically significant results because we do it the right way. If you actually go in and read the questions and the way we ask them, we are not putting our thumb on the scale. We want honest answers to honest questions. We could very easily write a question that says, would you rather, vote for, this wonderful candidate over here and this dastardly evil person over here. This deplorable over here. We don't do that. We want a real answer. So we do that. So anyway, it's all there to read. Any other thoughts on the poll, John?
No, I just thought it was very interesting, and it just shows, I think, kind of some things that we thought of. The economy is the major issue. Immigration's still a big issue, and there's property taxes are still the major concern of Iowans for a state and local issue.
And we've seen that in some of these events that we've had lately. They love what we're doing on income taxes. They are with us. Congratulate legislators for it. Mm-hmm. And then they really want to talk about property taxes. Yeah, and I think the folks that we're talking to understand that the issue lies in local government spending. And so that is encouraging. We just need to get more of the message out. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, very good.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Appreciate you joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Tell your friends, whatever you can do to help us get the message out. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend. And with that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.